Hello and welcome to Give and Toke, the show that elevates the conversation about cannabis to a higher level. I'm your host, Paul O'Donoghue, and joining me today is Tanner Stewart, founder of Stewart Farms, a Canadian wellness company focused on plant-powered pain relief. Tanner and his team are building topical products designed to support people in their day-to-day lives, thoughtfully, responsibly, and with an eye toward long-term trust. Welcome to the show, Tanner Stewart.
Thanks, Paul. Happy to be here.
So to kick things off, 30,000 bath bombs, 10,000 Arctic heat muscle creams a month, 33 Canadians employed, and tens of thousands of Canadians feeling relief. Tanner, I feel like you live in the dream.
I truly am. I truly am, Paul. When I decided to get into the cannabis industry back in 2018, I think it was Christmas 2018, and I was having a puff on the back step of my hometown, Miramichi, New Brunswick. And I thought, I'm going to make a pivot into the cannabis industry. I was actually farming lettuce at the time,
Right.
leafy greens. I was sort of a early mover in indoor vertical leafy green farming combined with aquaponics and that fish farming. And that whole maneuver was based on producing clean food for people because food is medicine. And I say you are what you eat. So that whole premise and that whole business infrastructure was based around making people healthier and feel better and know that they are putting good things into their body. But when I decided to move into the cannabis industry to produce a higher value crop was actually one of the reasons. There was a business maneuver behind it, but from day one, it was always medical for me right out the gate, and that was completely due to the influence of my mother, Kathy Stewart, who actually recently passed away at the end of 2025 here. And I spent 20 plus years after I graduated, well, after we smoked our first joint together, after she came out of the pot closet, so to speak, she was grounding me for smoking weed
Look at you now.
before yeah, look at me now. And, yeah, no, it was, so that kind of turned heads. I was so naive. I was like, I didn't even think she knew what cannabis smelled like, but obviously she was, so later on, Kathy Stewart's cookies became infamous in my friend circles. You'd never eat a full cookie. That was a big mistake, but she spent, 20 plus years before legalization in Canada, helping local people in my community access Rick Simpson oil, as they call it, or just crude cannabis oil extract would be another way to say it. But Rick Simpson popularized the high dose methodology of suppository or oral based cannabis for cancer treatment. And she immersed herself in that. So, and I watched that happen. So she showed me that cannabis was medicine. And when I decided to move into this industry, that was the only thing I was interested in. I wanna help because I was coming out of that same mindset in clean indoor agriculture for food, and I was like, "Okay, this can help people, and I can go directly to war," which is what my mother was doing with the alternative, which are opioids, primarily, benzodiazepines, sleeping pill, right? Sleeping pills and steroidal creams, and, this is just the safer alternative, so that is the mission, that was the mission from day one, and those stats that you read off sort of clarify that it's not really the mission anymore, we're doing it in real time. We're in it. We're in it. When people are using a Stewart Farms muscle cream or they're using a Stewart Farms bath bomb, they are not using an opioid in many cases, or they are using less of other pain relief alternatives. So,
I'm deeply moved by it because it is a really personal experience for you, and you kind of answered so many of my next questions in that really well summarized. This is deeply personal for you. It is, passed down from the family. I think that's such an important thing in cannabis. And are you seeing a lot of the similar kind of companies and brands break through that have that deeply personal connection? I had the privilege of being a bud tender in Vancouver for 2 years, and it was those early days. It was the big giant greenhouses. It was the big giant publicly listed players. Are you seeing in an industry that can be quite difficult, it's the people with, the true integrity that are shining through?
There are. I mean, it's a mixed bag, like in any industry. You have a good amount of very large scale publicly traded companies, and their only mission is return on investment for shareholders. And they have these ungodly sized cultivation operations, and they're a machine, and they just have to sell and generate revenue. And there's good in that as well. In some ways, in many ways, they employ hundreds of people, right? And I think one thing in our industry that can sometimes get lost for us little guys, right? And we're saying we're here and we're passionate and we really we're living this and we're this and we're that, and then you can demonize these large operators fairly quickly, but forgetting that, hey, actually there's also however many dozens and hundreds of families operating in these companies, and a lot of times there's a lot of people like me, and with that passion that got into the industry to help people, and they just happen to be working for, they're a cultivator at this big demonized company, or they're in the marketing team and they've got a lot of heart. So, and you see all those people in the I see them in the biggest companies I work with. I supply various medical platforms here in Canada with our Taquite muscle products and our bath bombs, and I work with those people that run departments at these big organizations. And I also have the honor of running across the small and medium sized operators, the craft cultivators that are designing strains for either just highly enjoyable recreational purposes. I also there's a fantastic gentleman here in Alberta named Dustin, and he's specifically working on cultivars for pain relief specifically, and he is very driven towards finding that ideal cultivar that can knock opioid, have a direct powerful impact versus the effect of an opioid, as an example. So all kinds, Paul, all kinds. And yeah, I see the snakes, and I see the there's the car salesmen and the greasy wheels, and it's just every industry, man.
Yeah, it takes all types, doesn't it?
It's all nice.
We have a highly rigorous medicinal framework here, and we're still, unfortunately, some time off a healthy, stable adult use market. 5 years ago, I predicted we were 5 years away, and now I feel like we're 10 away. So we haven't really, sadly, gotten any closer. One of the criticisms about adult use markets is that it often leaves behind the medicinal focus. But as you've got your mission, to change the way people perceive pain, you speak about Dustin, who's growing cultivars for pain management. Are you still finding that the medicinal elements of cannabis are still resonating with people despite, the heavily adult use nature of the Canadian market?
Yes, but I believe that the way Australia is doing it, which is maintaining a medicinal only market for a longer period of time, is better than the way we did it. And like we talked about, I have the honor of having a cultivar in the Australian. I have two cultivars actually in the Australian medical market right now, which makes my company 100% medical focused. I actually don't sell any of my medicinal cannabis, smokable cannabis. It's very small quantities, right? But I sell it all in Australia, only in the medical channel, and then all of my topicals are domestically here in Canada and in medical channels. I sell some cannabis in medicinal channels as well here, but not a lot. I know that, and we get the reviews. I actually know that our genetic is a ideal strain for zero anxiety and a sort of a leveled out experience, and then having that direct, continuous feedback from a consistent patient base in Australia that teaches us where our strain fits medicinally for that consistent patient base. And also, it is a very direct feedback loop when our crops are at their best and when a crop doesn't hit the terp level or the aroma level when it hits. And we're farming, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, sometimes one of our genetics is very finicky aroma profile. And some crops hit higher than others, and we get that direct feedback, and that's a good thing too because it keeps us at the absolute top of our game. I mean, the goal is to give somebody the same tomato every time with the same flavor, so that keeps us on our toes from a production.
Very passionate and loud patient base here in Australia. They're not shy to give their feedback.
100%, and I love it. I love it. I want that pressure. It's our job to deliver consistent medicine. But what I believe will happen in Australia, as opposed to Canada, is that when eventually, whenever that is, whenever adult recreational use does happen in Australia, you'll have had years longer for the medical system to level itself out, for doctors to understand what medicine goes where for what and why, without the rogue self treatment ability, right? Which is what happened here in Canada. So when a Canadian buys Stewart Farms bath bomb or our Arctic Heat muscle cream in a recreational cannabis store, it's not for recreation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're buying it to relieve their muscles, or they're buying it to treat their skin,
Yeah,
or
no one's grabbing a pizza on a Friday night with like an Arctic Heat balm and going, guys, gather around, let's have a sesh.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm here for the party, and I brought the
Jump in the
Arctic Heat.
bath.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe. I mean, there is a lot of wellness parties. Maybe we
That's
could do that.
true.
Who knows? Get together and rub cream on each other. Oh, this podcast is getting out of hand.
Now
Okay.
we've gotten to a
Um,
Diddy
uh,
party. Yeah.
whoa, whoa. but it's so it creates difficulty for it's made a massive issue for the medical system in Canada, like such a detriment that in retrospect, for wellness and for the doctors and for the pharmacists and for everybody, we probably should have stayed medical for 5 to 10 years. However, we're not. So now we have to work backwards. We've got to try to find a way to re-solidify our medical system and create that space for physicians and pharmacists to understand what's good for what. Sort of knowing that that same patient can just be like, ah, whatever, I'm going to go get some gummies at this local dispensary. So it just is what it is at this point, but I greatly appreciate the additional time, and that's gonna be most countries, Germany, Poland, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, in Australia. I think they're just gonna have more longer term, medicinal markets, and that's all right, And for me, that's from a medicinal perspective, right? It's from, what is gonna give cannabis as a medicine the best longevity and the greatest impact in a country. But I absolutely see the other side too. Like, hey man, I just want to go buy my ounce of weed at the local dispensary, and I'm not against that, but I just objectively, I think this is going to benefit the medicinal side of cannabis in Australia greater. So.
When you talk to customers or patients about pain, what do you hear most about how it affects their daily lives?
Man, I get reviews and emails about all kinds of things that I didn't expect to get emails about. Our largest customer base on the medicinal side are veterans in Canada because veterans have coverage. Stewart Farms is listed on the largest medical platforms in Canada, and we have 1/3 of the entire topicals market in Canada. In the bath category, we have that entire category. We're about 90%. We were the first to market with medicinal CBD THC bath bombs. We sort of spread across the country. We're the first on most of the medical platforms, and we've maintained that level of market share through the quality of our product. And of course, we design these medical baths is how I think about them. We're at the beginning of advancing the in-home spa treatment or the medicinal self-care treatment in the tub. Now that's not new. People have been using Epsom salts and really fancy baths forever. We just have a active cannabinoid input mixed in with all these other beautiful ingredients that we put into our bath bombs. But where we're breaking through is with men in a big way because of the veteran community that are using these bath bombs, and the feedback we're getting from them, some of it's PTSD related. I have a PTSD flare up. I take a Stewart Farms bath. Didn't see that coming because, of course, we didn't design them for mental health. We designed them for muscle and skin relief, right? So 30 minutes, you run a real hot bath, you get in there for 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and it's a really effective way to cover your whole body in cannabinoids all at once,
Hell yeah.
right? I'm not sure how else you do it, right?
I kind of want to cut this podcast now and just go have a bath, to be honest. That's how well you're selling it.
You know what? Let's just bath on the podcast. You take your camera, I'll take my camera.
There's our
We'll do
part
the
2
next one.
sorted.
Yeah, okay, we got part 2 planned out. That's perfect. Um, so that I didn't expect that level of feedback from veterans to say, "Well, I have a PTS flare up, I get in the bath." And it makes sense because part of what that does is it takes a man who may never have ever done a self-care ritual, right? And you go into the room, hey, women know how to have great baths, a lot of them, right? Candles and the lights go out, and then they get that peace and quiet. And as a man who might be doing that for the first time ever, and hey, you just had to put drugs in the bath bomb for him to finally take a bath, right?
Now it's masculine, yeah.
No, it's masculine. A drug bath is significantly more masculine than a non-drug bath, right? And that's how I sell it actually to them. They go, "Oh yeah,
Brilliant.
okay." I would have because you'll hear, "I haven't had a bath since I was 6 years old." I'm like, "Yeah, but I would have had some drugs." They're like, "Oh my god, fantastic," and so, but then they have that experience for the first time, right? So they've got that peace and quiet, right? They do that 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and they're by themselves and they have some time, and and there's aromatherapy and there's a physical effect as well, and then all of a sudden they're your biggest fans, right? Because they've never had that level of spa experience, right? So that's been great. As far as feedback from our muscle creams, I've had about a half a dozen women message us and let us know that they're using our Arctic Heat balanced formulation for endometriosis. And I obviously something that wouldn't have been on my radar whatsoever, but they're rubbing the cream on their abdominum, right? And and the stories in general, whether it's for arthritis treatment or they just have a chronic pain issue or they've got some sort of back issue or neck issue, what we hear is, "I've been able to use this for my endometriosis, and I'm not taking the T3, or instead of I don't have to take this other pill." And that is the magic of the entire group of drugs, which are known as cannabinoids. And what people need to truly understand is that Tylenol is more dangerous than cannabis, and Advil is more dangerous than cannabis. Almost every single behind the counter pharmaceutical drug has a safety profile that is apples and oranges to the group of drugs that are cannabinoids. And the starting point is, and really where the buck stops, is can the toxicity from this drug kill me or not? As in, can I take too much Tylenol and shut my lungs off and die? Yes, right? Can you do that with cannabis? Not that we know of, right? And so the answer, so the toxicity level, the risk of death from injecting the drug or sorry, consuming the drug. What is that? And so that's apples and oranges. Cannabinoids, no risk of death through toxicity. Tylenol, yes. Almost everything else. Opioids, absolutely. So what's the next level? The next level of safety profiling is addiction. Okay. And the word addiction, the definition of addiction, you can be addicted to anything. And addiction is meant to be is a negative term, and addiction means that I'm consuming this thing and it has a negative effect on my life. Or many of us are, we say we have a coffee addiction, but we function on coffee. It's not really, it's meant to be a negative connotation. So what does addiction to cannabis look like versus an opioid? Okay, well, cannabis addiction, when it starts negatively affecting somebody's life and assuming it's the only thing that they're addicted to, right? So it's having negative effects on one's life. Chances are they're living in their mom's basement playing too many video games and maybe they're eating too many cheesies, but you're not out, you're not on the streets, probably. You're probably still functional enough to have a job, right? And you're probably still functional enough to not have your mom kick you out of the basement, and, so what addiction looks like when it does happen at whatever that rate is, 14% or less, within the whole group of drugs called cannabinoids, versus what does addiction on an opioid look like? Well, we know what it looks like. It's all over the streets of Canada. 6,500 people a year in Canada die from opioid toxicity, 0 die from cannabis, 0. We've got 250,000-ish people on the streets right now across Canada. You can trace a lot of that back to opioid addiction. Uh, I am a pipe fitter by trade. I'm a tradesman. I have a construction company, in Alberta, and tradespeople, blue collar laborers, workers, pipe fitters, welders, iron workers, uh, and veterans. That group of mostly men and women, but a higher percentage of men. They walk into the doctor with pain, and most doctors, they are drug distributors, right? And you go into the doctor for 5 minutes. They have their arsenal of prescription drugs. That you say my tummy hurts. You don't even get the word "tum" out of your mouth, and they give you, oh, here you go, right? And then here you go, here you go. They just have their list of what they're going to give you. But opioids are more guarded than they used to be. I will say that, but not much, man. Not very much. They've tightened it up as little as possible. And cannabis, the group of cannabinoids should be the class of drugs that is utilized first, right? Let's back up before that, right? Sleep, exercise, and diet. That's the first line of
Oh,
defense.
how often I'm having a bad day and it's just because I'm not hydrated and haven't been for a walk, like the simplest things.
Absolutely, absolutely, and lack of sleep creates more inflammation. Lack of hydration drives inflammation. Poor diet drives inflammation, right? So it's like you need to back up before any drug supplement or those are prescribed with the drug supplement. But the point here, uh, overall, is that this is the industry, and effective cannabinoid medicinal systems truly, truly can upend this toxic system that is arguably far too, incredibly dangerous, and is doing as much damage as it is doing good.
You've got these amazing products that very much sit in a disruption category because we are talking about, changing our ideals from our classic steroid based creams and things like that to target pain management. We obviously get general resistance from the pharmaceutical industry. Have you experienced any targeted resistance? Are you feeling the pressure? Anyone got their eye on you, got you in their sights?
Well, I hope so. I hope, and I hope more eyeballs come if we're doing our job correctly. You know, the cannabis industry is an absolute enemy to the well-established pharmaceutical system, just by default of the way we're regulated, the way we are muzzled. Uh, it is completely obvious that our industry in Canada is overregulated in good part to protect the existing medical infrastructure and drug distribution system that we have in Canada. It's done to protect Purdue and all these, or I think Purdue's gone, but all these opioid giants. Uh, so we need to persist on results, right? So a good example, we're technically not allowed to use testimonials in Canada. Advertising, we can't advertise the results, but I have hundreds of reviews. Results don't lie. Of people, you know, those women who emailed me about their endometriosis, or or I just the other day I had a girl on Instagram. She said, "My father got off morphine because he used your rebound cream and some CBD gummies as a combo." These are all real world results. These people know what's working and they know what's not. And I have interviewed, you know, a lot of veterans. Same story. The veterans are responsible for creating the medical cannabis industry in Canada in large part and have been a major beneficiary of it. But they've used medical cannabis to not be in a brain fog anymore. Because when you get on a concoction of pills, you hear that same term over and over again, brain fog. Okay. And the psychological roller coaster that you end up on with the drug cocktail, that it's progressive, right? So they keep stacking on these drugs with these additional side effects. You know, at first you get on an opioid, but then you need a stomach for your pill because you end up with irritable bowel syndrome, and then you start feeling a bit depressed because the opioid is making you foggy. The brain fog starts, right? Oh, well, now you need an SSRI. Okay, well, now you're in psychotic break territory, right? Because SSRIs, they're not happy drugs. They're remove emotion drugs, right? And then now you're in this cocktail scenario where you've got these interactions between the negative side effects of these drugs, but also if you fumble on your SSRI dosing, or you take too much, you take too little, or you just they prescribed you the wrong amounts. Now you're heading into rebound territory where, let's see, because you're you get put in this state where you're like, I can't think and I'm tired and I don't feel human. I don't feel right. I don't feel because I'm on these. And then what does the patient do, or the veteran? They've been through this over and over again. Like our veterans have basically been used as pharmaceutical drug experiments, right? As vessels to just prescribe into these into our who should be our most protected citizens, right? Who serve us. Uh, so then they stop taking everything, and then they might have a psychotic break because the SSRIs they're addicted to all of that stuff, physically addicted to all of it within a matter of weeks, right? So throw all that out the window, and then we've got 200 cannabinoids. Okay. CBD is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories we have access to. I like to call it turmeric on steroids. Okay. Right. What are the side effects? Nil. Right. CBN is a rising star in the go to bed category, right? CBN is a sleepy cannabinoid, right? That can put you to so that is going to go head to head with all of these sleeping pills, which are also very dangerous and you can get very reliant on as well. And uh, then you have THC. Well, THC is the sort of heavy hitter in the pain relief category within the group of cannabinoids. It is the head-to-head component to opioids, really, right? It's because, uh, yeah, it gets you high, but so do opioids. See, and right, and we have this. We also have this language break when we start talking about cannabis and the group of drugs. Like people put morphine in topicals, okay? Like pharmacists have been compounding opioids into topicals for years. I'm putting cannabinoids into topicals, right? And then people go, "Wait a minute, is this THC topical gonna get me high?" No, it's not gonna get you high. That's not how drugs are absorbed through your skin. But would we ever ask that to the doctor when they put an opioid into the topical cream? Nobody asks that. They're not gonna be like, "Hey, is this opioid cream gonna get me high?" Wouldn't even think that, right? And it won't, but it's just but we've taken very effectively over 70 years of misinformation. The pharmaceutical industry and the medical establishment has taken a whole class of the safest drug we have access to and uh, given it a whole different language
Yeah,
than we
just
talk about
boogeymaned it.
everything else.
Yeah.
We boogeymaned it 100%. So, like, when I talk to people about cannabis topicals, it's not cannabis topicals 101. It's topicals 101, right? I'm forced to educate people about how drugs work within the cannabis industry, but but I'm not really talking specifically about how cannabis drugs work. It's how all the drugs work, so to speak, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know what we were talking about.
No, but that actually nicely leads to my next question because I do want to pull it back to a bit of a 101 because your category isn't thriving here in Australia and barely exists. It's a lot to do with the lack of education. Now, despite our
Mhm.
medical framework, the scheduling of cannabis means that we have very limited opportunities to educate people. This is something you're allowed to do because you're coming in from Canada. When people do ask that, imagine an Aussie patient is asking you, will I get high from this? Or just how does it work? Because honestly, when I tell people about bath bombs or THC creams for tennis elbow or whatever, they are kind of shocked and it's what and why and how. So, an Aussie
Mhm.
patient's in front of you, they've never heard of it before. How do these work?
Okay, well, I'm gonna give a really baseline, interesting tidbit about drugs in general, right? And it's not, and I use the word drugs, but you can also use turmeric. Turmeric is an excellent example. Okay. You can ingest turmeric, and what does it do? It's an anti-inflammatory, right? It's a herbal anti-inflammatory. It's fantastic. You can ingest lavender, right? You can smell lavender. You can have an aromatherapy from it. Those same botanical compounds, those are very well, you can put them in creams as well, right? You can put them in creams. Using the opioid example, also, pharmacists, for as long as opioids have been around, yes, you ingest an opioid to turn off your pain receptors internally, right? And that's really what opioids do. They turn your pain receptors off. But you can also put it in creams and use it locally to affect your pain receptors on your skin in the same manner in that local area as you do when you ingest it. So I don't know if this applies to all drugs, but here's an interesting observation I made. Oh, a lot of times when you put a drug in your stomach, you can also put that in a cream and it will have those similar effects in a topical. Okay, so that's sort of the baseline uh, interesting thing to look at. And again, I don't know if that translates to all drugs, but it translates to all those things I just said. We had a product with turmeric in it. We have products with lavender in it, menthol, eucalyptus. Right? We use those things in our formulations. But now to bring it to cannabinoids specifically, uh, we have an endocannabinoid system, which just like we have an opioid system, which means we have receptors all over our skin and all over our body and internally as well. Actually, the latest research has determined that our cannabinoid receptors are actually cellular. We have cannabinoid receptors everywhere. like not just on our skin, but almost at the cellular level as well. So we're designed to receive these compounds, but we also produce them internally. We produce these compounds internally as well. So in the case of using a topical, if I have CBD and THC in one of our creams as our Art to Keep Balance stick here, as an example, and you apply it topically to an area that you have pain or inflammation in, what that does is the cannabinoids are now going to bind with your on skin cannabinoid receptors, and that is going to signal that area of your body to lower inflammation, because that's how our body produces chemicals and responds to things. Signals are sent throughout our body, and chemicals bind to receptors in certain areas of our body, and that signals what that area of our body needs to do to rectify a situation, so to speak. So we are internally and externally built to receive cannabinoids, and at a high level, that is how it works. And a certain percentage, we design our topicals to have a, you know, as much cannabinoid as I can afford to put in a topical, because just ingestion versus using something topically, there's a percentage of cannabinoid that will actually bind to the receptors in the area you apply it to, and that's really at a high level how it works. We're wired to receive cannabinoids.
That alone there sums it up. I think that could be the title of the episode. We're wired to receive cannabinoids. I love that. I truly love that.
Yeah, I figured that out in high school. I was like, ah, cannabinoids are great.
I don't
I
know
love
why
these
yet.
things.
I love them.
I don't know why. Yeah.
Touching on Stewart Farms a little bit more here, tell me about the people and the brand. You know, I really was taken aback by just how many products you're selling, just how many people you're employing, how many people are a part of the mission there. Tell us about the company and the brand and the values.
Yeah. Our facility is located in a small town in New Brunswick, Atlantic Canada, so on the East Coast, St. Stephen, New Brunswick. And we have about 33 people that work for the company right now. It's pretty nice because we're in a town of 5,000 people. So those 30-ish jobs in a town of 5,000 people are they're a big deal. And I put Stewart Farms in New Brunswick, in the province of New Brunswick, because that's where I'm from originally. So I thought that this would be. I've been in Alberta, Canada. I'm talking to you from Edmonton right now. It is minus 25 here right now. I just want all of your Australian viewers to know it is minus 25, and
And I want you to
you know
know
you can.
it's 31 here, so we are worlds apart.
We are 56 degrees apart on this podcast right now. And I got a buddy in northern Alberta. It was minus 47 last night. It's
Humans are
just,
not built for that, man.
this is crazy. But anyways, so I was in Alberta. I've been in Alberta for 20 years, and when I started Stewart Farms, I thought, hey, this is a good business that I think I can put back in my home province, because I had already been an entrepreneur for 15 years. So I did that. I found this huge building in St. Stephen. I bought this facility, and then I spooled up this company from scratch with a bunch of great people, and a bunch of good things happened, and a bunch of nightmares happened. And this is by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
I
It's
bet.
consumer packaging. Oh man, like all of these products that you mentioned, they didn't exist 5 years ago, and the industry was brand new. But not only did the products not exist, the building didn't exist, the manufacturing line didn't exist. Every single person at Stewart Farms, here's one of the most beautiful things about my team, and being in this small town. Every single person who manufactures these bath bombs and makes these pain creams, not a single one of them had previous experience, making high quality, clean, herbal medicine, right? Which would be a way to look at what we do. Everybody who my VP of operations, who runs the entire farm, she used to be the manager of the local Boys and Girls Club, which is like a daycare-esque facility. Now she runs a international exporting medicinal facility that
Hell
supplies
yeah.
all of Canada. Yeah, and there's an additional challenge operating in Canada. This country's just like Australia, man. There's not enough people and it's way too big. So to access the 40 million people that live in Canada, we have to build a logistics infrastructure that spans thousands of kilometers, right? So we ship from New Brunswick to British Columbia every week, right? It's a 6-hour flight from New Brunswick to BC, and it's a 6-hour flight from, Canada to South America. We could probably make it all the way to, past Brazil, right? And, it's a big country. So this team, has been forged through fire and brimstone, and it's amazing. We've been through some serious stuff together. Not all the same people. Any startup, the team is almost completely different now than it was 5 years ago. You go through your rollover. Startups are hard, man. It's hard. It's hard for people. A lot. It's very common. Some of the people you start with, you don't go the distance with, right? There's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of, everything's so uncertain in the early days. But these jobs we have in New Brunswick, they're relatively good paying jobs for the community. When this company grows and as we make more money, they're going to make more money. They all understand that we as a team, we're trying to double and triple our output over the next couple years, right? And they know that. I share everything with them. I tell them when we're making money. I told them when we weren't making money
Yeah.
because we weren't. We
The
had to build the
Canadian
plane.
cannabis experience.
Yeah, yeah. That's why it's a good thing I have a construction company because you can't just not have another company if you're going to start a cannabis company, right? But yeah, no, it's quite fantastic, that these people and they held me together. 2 things have held me together through this whole entire journey. One of them is obviously the Stewart Farms team and just them believing in me, having the team's belief in me during the hardest times and almost losing it all multiple times in the last 5 years. And then the feedback from the customers and the patients every couple days or every week, getting these multiple reviews, thank you for helping my mother, thank you for this, thank you for my pain relief. And then looking at this team in this small town, and it is even more pressure when you've got these 30 jobs in a town where it matters more, right? All of those things have kept me going, and it's like, you know there's too big to fail, but then there's also, just too important to fail, and you're too many people relying on you to succeed, in your mission, and I just know we're doing good things, right? And I told my mom before she passed away, I said, she helped a lot of people, man. She helped a lot of people. She spent her whole life helping people. And I said, I'm going to help as many people as I can before I die. And this is the perfect vehicle for that. So it's too important for me to fail. Uh, you know, um, so we're not going to. And then that team is the backbone of where we're at right now, and they're going to be the backbone of our success going forward. So
It's honestly really moving stuff. And you really did come to my main attention when I saw how openly and honestly you share the story about your mum. And it really just resonates deeply with me, as a bit of a mama's boy myself, as someone who has seen my own mum benefit from medicinal cannabis over the last couple of years, as much as she wants to resist how well it's working and still refuses to tell anyone that she's using it. It just, that deeply resonates with me. And I'm just so grateful for the power of your story and everything that you shared today. I want to take just a little pause, and actually this might be one of the last things we do, but it's a give and take quiz. It just gives us a time to pause from the deep cannabis conversation, have a little bit of fun. This is a rapid fire quiz with a countdown timer called Hotbox. So I'm just going to throw would you rather types at you. Feel free to give single answers, detailed answers, whatever works for you. Does that sound all right?
let's do it. Fire away.
Best thing about working in cannabis.
The people I meet and the places I go.
Worst thing about working in cannabis.
Government over regulation and taxation.
Flower or edibles.
Flower.
Joints or blunts.
Joints.
Summer or winter.
Oh, I know I'm Canadian. I know I'm Canadian, but summer.
I'll trade you, man. Travel back in time or see the future.
Oof. The future.
Favorite place to consume cannabis.
Outside the gym right before I go in.
Favorite cannabis product on the market right now that is not yours.
Oh, oh man. Now I'm just realizing how much of my own bubble I'm inside right now.
Getting high on your own supply, nothing wrong with that.
I do mostly get high on only my own supply.
Final one, describe your perfect 420.
Well, 420 is the day before my birthday. So I'm 421. So every year I get a 2-day celebration. But for me, the perfect 420 would just have to be being somewhere unique, somewhere unique. I would say the perfect 420 for me is in another country and having a unique cannabis experience that is unique only to that country. That is the perfect 420 experience to me. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of the past and one I want in the future. I ended up smoking a joint in the middle of a jungle on a raft in Jamaica years ago. And the raft captain, he rolled it up in one hand for me. He said, "Hey man, you want some Bob Marley, man?" And that's my horrible Jamaican accent.
Yeah.
And yeah, oh, that was bad. And I said, "Yeah, man." So he's singing Bob Marley. He rolls it up in one hand, right? He's got the raft and the other thing in the other hand. He hands me a joint. I don't drink anymore, but I was drinking at the time. I had a red stripe in one hand and a joint in the other, and I'm like in Jamaica, and this guy's singing, and I'm smoking some local herb, right? So a
Sublime.
future goal, oh, it was amazing. So a future goal would be to be in India, maybe on 420, but actually it'd have to be around Holi Festival. And I want to drink bong, which is a BHANG, which is a cannabis infused milk drink. So to me, that's like super unique. And, so those types of things around cannabis is what I like.
That experience in Jamaica is like if you came to Australia and we were all dressed as Steve Irwin. We're like, "G'day, mate! I can have a Barbie with us," you know. So that could you be any more cliche? I absolutely adore it because honestly, if you came to Australia for 420 right now, I'll paint you a picture of Melbourne in the last
Yep.
2 years. So, like 10, 15 years ago, people would gather in this park in the city called Flagstaff Gardens. Members of Parliament would come, you'd have a joint, you'd sing some songs, you'd listen to some drum circles. It was, your kind of classic experience. And frustratingly, over the last couple of years, since there's been more, popularity and less stigma, the police have increased their presence. So now we go to Flagstaff Gardens, flanked by about 80 to 120 police there. They set up processing tents, they search people, they make sure that you've only got cannabis that's prescribed, and it's become a real drag. So I'm sorry to,
Mm.
be a downer on the 420 celebrations, but make sure you avoid Melbourne at least for the next few years.
Unreal, unreal. That's really, really, really unfortunate. But this is why we have to be careful as an industry as well, because regulation is quite often framed as a safety maneuver when it actually is a controlling mechanism, right? And we have to be careful that this legalization maneuver in Australia. I mean, I painted the what I think is the rosy picture of the medicinal cannabis industry in Australia. We have to be careful that it isn't a pharmaceutical lobbied led trap to squash the cannabis industry, and that's what that sounds like, right? Regulate and then over control. So at one point, some civil disobedience may be required again, even within a legal framework.
The final segment of the show is called Pauls of Wisdom, and though we love the long form conversation, we try to leave the listener with a dinner party fact or a key takeaway or a call to action. So, Tanner, what is your Paul of Wisdom?
I mean, a lot of the mantra that I hang on to personally right now in life is that, you have nothing to lose. You enter this world with nothing, and you will leave this world with nothing. And therefore, there is nothing that you have to lose, although you may perceive that. And you never know when the last time you're going to be talking to somebody. And it's never too soon to tell somebody you love why you love them. And I mean years and years in advance, your mom, your dad, your aunts, your uncles, your best friends. It is never too soon to tell them the reasons why you love them and you have them in your life. So I think just get out of bed every day and realize you have nothing to lose and tell the people you care about why you care about them.
Wisdom that goes beyond cannabis. Tanner, you've shared amazing things today about your mum, about the work you're doing with veterans. You've touched on endometriosis, addiction, tradies getting benefit out of cannabis as medicine. That would deeply resonate with the Australian population too. It really means a lot to spend this time with you today to hear your story, and I'm excited about our part 2 down the line, Boys in the Bath.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.